Hello everyone. I'm responding to an exchange a while back, or initially was when I first started thinking about making this video, was responding to an exchange between Happy Cabby on his blog and Cardinal Virtues on YouTube about Happy Cabby's justifications for deciding he was going to vote for Romney, or will vote for Romney unless he's already voted early. And with the election coming up, I figured it might be important to take a few things into account that they don't mention. The first is that by the time the presidential election comes around, and please think about this very carefully, you've reduced your number of possible choices as to which candidate you want to in this country. If you want to push, even if you want to push for a third party and get the magical 5% that gives you federal election funding, really, if you haven't accomplished that by primary season, if you haven't gotten a large body of people behind you by primary season, then that 5% number isn't going to happen. Really, when these things are decided, when your vote counts, is in all the efforts and all the writing politicians and all the communications and talking with neighbors and all the political actions you take throughout the rest of the year. Pretty much the general election is about which of this small list, in this case of 2 people, do you want for this office? It's like the tracks have been laid out. That's what the entire rest of the time spent is for in politics, is to lay out what the possible ways the tracks will go are, and pretty much everything's already built and you just get to choose door number 1 or door number 2. Any other vote is kind of strange. I mean, if you're expecting a protest vote, if you think please forgive that, if you feel that you can cast a protest vote and have it be meaningful in the general election when your actual preference, or for one or the other 2 candidates as the lesser of 2 evils would not count, I'm not seeing how the math adds up. Nobody cares what you or I, who you or I or the guy down the street voted for. What they care is what the vote totals were. So, yes, your vote counts as a vote. That's it. It's not a place for ego and grandstanding. But that's just the technical thing, and I don't want to get into detail about Happy Cabby's willingness to say, well, Obama didn't do this, and this and this and this, and he said he was going to, but Romney, even though he said he wants to do this, he can't because Congress won't let him. And I'm wondering why he's feeling no cognitive dissonance about that. The most important thing about the office of the president is not necessarily the president, him or herself. Eventually there will be a female president, I suspect. It is the 1,500 or so political appointees underneath them that shape the entire executive branch by the decisions they make. It is the Supreme Court appointments, the lifetime Supreme Court appointments. It is the district attorneys' offices. It is, well, they're federal appointees. It is it is all of these people that are brought to the federal government simply by voting for this one person. And with that in mind, I would like to note that the person who is advising Romney on judicial nominations is none other than Robert Bork, the man who believes there is no constitutional right to vote, that there is no legal justification for protection against gender discrimination in the Constitution, there is essentially, I'm just going to skip all over that and just go right to the chase, which is, I know several, actually many, sane Republicans. None of them are in charge of the Republican Party. I don't think any of us can name any really well-adjusted people. As by well-adjusted, I mean connected to the idea that there is a reality that we cannot simply hold our breath or pray or clap really hard for Tinkerbell and change it to be what we want it to be. The Democratic Party can be bullied. It has ideologues of, conservative ideologues. The left wing is almost dead, but there are some strong progressives there. There are a lot of moderates who want to go for bipartisanship. But at least it can be affected by reality a lot of times. And it cares how it looks. The Republican Party, at this point, with climate change, with supply-side economics, and there I'm going to have a link to the report. Below are links to the exchange between Happy Cabby and Cardinal Virtues. But also to a report saying, there really isn't any connection we can find between cutting the top marginal tax rates and capital gains taxes and growth. But there is a link, and this was an interesting note in the report, between cutting those tax rates and income inequality. The more you cut those tax rates, the more that income grows, the difference between the highest and the lowest wage earner grows, which is what you might expect if you don't think, or if you think that people who are out there to acquire massive amounts of money are loath to give it away or to, in any meaningful sense, invest it in a way that is economically beneficial to the lowest income earners or to anyone but themselves. Hence the proliferation of offshore banking accounts and things like that. But to get back to the point, this report, and I'll link to the New York Times article as well, was shouted down from the Congressional Research Service. It was shouted down by the Senate Republicans. It is a cycle of shoot the messenger. It's like the state legislature in North Carolina saying, no, the water level can't rise above a certain amount. The sea can't rise above a certain amount. We'll just pretend climate change doesn't exist, or we'll simply mandate that it doesn't. And the entire reasoning, what I'm trying to say, is that you have a party that is off its fucking rocker, and you have a party that is a pretty generic average as far as corruption and stupidity and vice political party. You have the Republicans who are pushing through, regardless of what anyone says, they are pushing through the attempted rollback of women's rights. At least they're going for at least 50 years. And you have the party that, well, they will do the right thing if you browbeat them into doing it. Or at least they'll sort of do it. So, to me, the idea of voting for someone, especially an atheist, voting for someone who is, in his own words, a bishop of his church, and expecting the protections from of freedom of religion to be respected. Remember that one of the things the president can do is decide what the priorities are for law enforcement. The strange thing to expect a businessman whose skill was buying up failing companies, breaking them up or restructuring them to extract as much money as possible from them, and then offloading it on someone else who would have to deal with all the debt created. and expecting that business expertise to translate into making a well-managed budget for a nation which prints its own currency. To expect someone who believes that running an event which was heavily subsidized by the federal government, by that I mean the Olympics in Salt Lake City, and that having to deal with many, many, many different cultures and whatever, translates into the experience necessary to run government from a position that government doesn't create jobs or help anybody, and that we must be aggressive in our foreign relations and label China a currency manipulator from day one, and the Russians are our greatest geopolitical enemy. Why would you vote for that? Why would you vote for someone who has essentially the resume to turn a liberal democracy into a banana republic? Which we're doing a pretty good job of already. I mean, we don't need his help. We really don't. And getting back to what I was saying at the beginning, I'm voting for Obama, but I'm also going to be raising hell because he will listen, Obama, if he is elected, will listen to those people who he hears. And right now we are being drowned out by a lot of money. So if you're going to vote, I would strongly recommend not voting for the party of crazy. And I would strongly recommend that you make your vote, whatever it is, felt throughout the year, especially by voting in your primary elections. And yes, I'm talking to you Republicans. Try and undo some of the damage that the Ted Koch brothers, or the Koch brothers funded Tea Party have done, and that to the Republican Party, and try and get some sane economic perspectives in there. And for the Democrats, you know, do what you can to vote against in primaries and to promote candidates who are not Republicans with little donkey lapel pins, because those don't survive too well. Realize that the process of politics is a process, not the action of walking up to a voting booth and punching a screen or pulling the lever. And when in doubt, try and vote for less crazy. Or at least vote for someone who does not reverse himself every few years. Or minutes, in the case of the third presidential debate. Thank you for your time and attention. Thank you to those of you who have voted, and I hope those of you who haven't do so this Tuesday.